All right, reboot? What's up, everyone? Nostalgic Row here, back with a movie review. What we're going to talk about tonight is Mortal Kombat, the new movie that dropped a few weeks ago. I know I'm a little late to the game of actually being able to watch it and review it, but I wanted to, take my time with it a little bit, make sure that, I was able to think about it a little bit, form some opinions, and get you guys the best review that I could with it. So, with that being said, the new movie, Mortal Kombat, initial impression of it is I liked it. It was a lot of goofy fun. It when I saw the trailers initially, this movie, I had my concerns. It was one of those that it was like, okay, either it's going to be too goofy or it's going to be too serious. And I really think they threaded the needle nicely on this. Certainly you kick things off with the opening scene, very serious, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, of course, going by Bihan. And Hanzo facing off their big epic battle with that to kind of kick off the overarching storyline. And then from there, it did exactly that. Anytime it got a little too cheesy, it would pull itself back just enough that it made it back into, reality, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then, I think they did a really nice job of going from there and building upon a story. The story itself is kind of, okay. It's not one that you're certainly going to be like, oh, it's amazing storytelling. No, like this movie is just about Mortal Kombat, what makes it appealing as a video game, and that's fun fighting, the gore, and the characters. And that's what they did a great job of threading that needle. Now, with that being said, with the story itself, following the main character Cole Young, not going a little spoilerish, but basically, he is a descendant of Scorpion, and really that's kind of what sets up this whole movie. Is it's Scorpion's clan versus Bihan, aka Sub-Zero. So was that necessary? Because he was like the new character being brought into this, and the reality is I think that, it works for what they were trying to do, but at the same time, it wasn't necessary. And it led up to more questions of like, what the heck is going on? Especially towards the end, he was a very generic character. Your typical, he doesn't think he can do it, but he can do it. And trying to find his kunai, I believe they call it, or no, I can't remember what they call it, but finding basically, his fatality moves and stuff. And so it works being a descendant of Scorpion and setting it up that maybe he becomes the next Scorpion or something. Yeah, sure, it works. Or maybe he becomes the next Sub-Zero. With that whole with that whole piece of Mortal Kombat history. We'll see what happens. I'm assuming there's probably going to be a sequel. Like it's doing well enough that it's definitely going to deserve at least a lot of talking about having a sequel. So we'll see what they do. But as a whole, his character is kind of just forgettable. And the only thing that I really didn't know, and I don't think this had anything to do with any sort of history of Mortal Kombat, but like when he finally finds his inner power, and then he gets this little suit thing, and it's like, well, what the heck is that? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, the other thing that was like a slight disappointment, but at the same time clearly sets it up for the sequel, is that they never actually enter Mortal Kombat. All this is happening before Mortal Kombat. So, so that's where it's like, at least that was kind of cool that they like didn't feel like, oh, we have to go to the tournament, we have to do this and that, because really that's kind of what the original Mortal Kombat was about, was exploring that. And instead they just got into like, hey, you know what Mortal Kombat is? They explain it a little bit anyway, but they're like, this movie isn't about actually the tournament itself. So I did like that kind of aspect of it, that at least like it set it up so like, okay, the sequel should be then like it's Mortal Kombat. But again, with how they built the world, that's not necessarily going to happen either. So they left it open for a lot of possibilities with that anyway. Let's see, other characters. I would say definitely the guy that carries the movie is Kano. I was shocked because he was the one that in the trailers was the most cringeworthy for me. But I really enjoyed the character Kano. I think they really hit the nail on the head, and again threaded that needle of that he's like this super annoying guy, but at the same time too you can't help but laugh at him and enjoy the character. So yeah, they just did a really solid job with him, and he cheesed it up just enough that he was enjoyable, and it was too bad with what happened to him at the end. But maybe he makes a comeback, maybe he doesn't. We'll see. I mean, certainly in the Mortal Kombat world, anything's possible with that. Jax, Sonya Blade. Sonya Blade had a decent role in this movie, but at the same time kind of underwritten a little bit, but certainly set herself up to be a bigger factor in the sequel, which was okay. She was good. She had a good back and forth with Kano. That's kind of why I think it worked, and like hoping that they can bring that along as well. And then Jax was really just kind of, he was there at first, and then he pretty much disappeared the rest of the movie, and they didn't really need him until the end, which was okay. Again, he was kind of underwritten. I think that's with a lot of these characters. They were kind of underwritten, but at the same time, they had to keep the pace moving with this movie to really work. So it was okay. Jax isn't a huge fan, or I'm not a big fan of his characters. So again, it was fine, but it was definitely noticeable that like he's just missing for chunks, and like, could he contribute something? Maybe. As far as Shang Tsung and those main bad guys, again, they were kind of a blip too, and severely underwritten. You just kind of knew they were big bad guys, and they showed it up when they needed to. It was unfortunate that we didn't get more Cabal. Cabal was actually really enjoyable as well, though some of his lines were a little bit too like obvious. But yeah, like I wish we would have got more Cabal. Melina was nothing really. And then Shang Tsung himself was kind of just, he was there, he was threatening, but not a whole lot. The movie mainly focused on more of like the Sub-Zero Scorpion stuff, which was cool. Sub-Zero, he was definitely a cool character, and obviously he's going to come back as Noob Saibot. But yeah, like definitely an enjoyable character, and curious on where they're going to take that whole thing, again, because of Scorpion and Cole and stuff. Raiden, I was surprised he was kind of an angry god the whole time, which was fine. It works, but certainly like underestimating the team. And then Liu Kang, I really liked. I wish we had more screen time of him. And Kung Lao, same thing. Those two were great. So yeah, as a whole, like a lot of great characters, a lot of great things. If anything, just maybe underwritten a little bit or not utilized to their total potential. But at the same time, we got introduced to all these characters, and, they needed the space. And like I said, if this movie was slowed down anymore, I don't think it would work. I don't think it'd be as good. I think they did what they could with it, and it works. I guess the other main character I'm missing is Goro. I wish we had more Goro, and I wish we had more to work with him, but instead he just, at least in the original movie, we saw him a bit more, and we kind of learned a bit more. In this one, it was kind of more of like, nope, he shows up, he does his battle, and then he's done. So wish we could have got more Goro out of this. So yeah, so that kind of covers the characters. As far as like the storyline, the plot, again, like I said, like it's pretty basic, but it keeps moving, it keeps things going. You don't question the kind of things that you're like, well, wait a minute, what? You just don't think about it really. So they did a good job, but I mean, it's a pretty basic plot as far as all that, which again, I think it works. As far as graphics and the fighting themselves, fight scenes are pretty cool. I think they did a pretty solid job. They did get a little borderline again on that cheese with some of like the finish him and things like that, but at the same time, they didn't feel too forced. There's only one or two lines where I was like, okay, yeah, like you're making that just so you can be like, see, we did it. But as a whole, the fight scenes were pretty cool. Some of them were like very brief, which was nice, because it's like, yeah, not everyone needs a 20-minute fight scene. Some of them were like literally just 10 seconds, boom, and the fight was done. And it's like, yeah, that works. And you saw enough that they got to show off some of their special powers and things, finishing moves and whatnot, fatality. So it flowed very nicely in that regard. And at the same time too, yes, it was bloody and gruesome, but not like super over the top. This is definitely not going to be confused with the Saw movies or anything like that. Like, it's not like that hardcore type of blood and guts. It's very like basic of what you would see out of a typical rated R movie, with like one or two scenes because of the fatalities that you're like, yeah, okay, that's a little over the top, but again, that's the video game. So yeah, I guess as far as a whole, then, like I said, like, I thought everything looked really good. The graphically, some of the characters looked like they could have maybe been a little bit better. Like, Goro looked pretty good, but you've certainly seen better. Yeah. So, but it was all wham bam and whatnot. So nothing too crazy, but it certainly could have been maybe a little bit better had they maybe had a bigger budget. And yeah, and then setting up for the sequel. Again, like, the sequel is pretty much set up as, hey, they're going to go get more fighters and we're going to start Mortal Kombat. And of course, not really giving away much either, but spoiler of the Johnny Cage reference at the end. Would Ryan Reynolds go and do this movie? He certainly fits it, no doubt about it. He would probably make an awesome Johnny Cage, because he practically is Johnny Cage, as far as the acting side is concerned. And we know that, he can make some fun fighting movies with Deadpool and stuff. But at the same time, I feel like it'd be cliche if it was Ryan Reynolds, but it would work in this universe, I think. But I also think that, like, I like the fact that pretty much most of these actors you've never really seen before, or you don't like really recognize. So I think then putting Ryan Reynolds into this, it gets that borderline of like, that's too big of a name maybe, that might make this too mainstream. But at the same time, to get it to that next level, to get it out there for more people to see it, to more people enjoy it, does it become a Ryan Reynolds flick? Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd have to see who they would maybe else consider. But certainly Ryan Reynolds is practically a walking, talking Johnny Cage. So yeah, and then the music was good too. There wasn't any memorable like songs like the original, of course. But again, it fit. I mean, and I guess that to wrap up the review as a whole, that's what this movie really is that it fits, it works. Is it the greatest thing ever? No, far from it. Can you turn it on though and get a lot of enjoyment out of it? Yes, you can. There's a lot to enjoy here in the Mortal Kombat movie. And as a video game fan, as a moviegoer who's pretty critical about a lot of movies, this was one that, like, it surpassed what I was looking for. It's an enjoyable flick. I would rewatch this flick multiple times, no problem whatsoever. Probably nitpick it a little bit more and pick up on some other things. But as a whole, like, this is great. I really enjoyed it. I would certainly recommend checking it out as soon as you can, and to hear your guys' thoughts as well. Now, comparing it to the original Mortal Kombat, I think they're kind of right on the same page. They each have their own uniqueness to them, and pluses and minuses. I think this one's going to hold up. I feel like in terms of like movie making is concerned, like this one's going to hold up better. But as far as what impact it has, then yeah, the original is going to be better. The original, of course, kind of broke that barrier for video game movies. This one doesn't break any barriers, and that's kind of the difference, is that this one's just a really solid movie, and if you didn't know it was a video game movie, it would still be a solid movie. Whereas the original is more of like, no, you need to rely on the fact that it's a video game movie. And then that's where it gets a little more of its enjoyment out of there. So yeah, so obviously, as I've already said, go out there, check it out. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of the Mortal Kombat movie. Did you really enjoy it? Do you think it was severely lacking? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and until next time, we'll see you later.